Good afternoon and welcome to CEC Gurukul lecture. In a series on sociology of kinship, in today's lecture we're going to discuss on aging, kinship and gender. Now it's very important to understand two things. First, that in kinship generally the discussion is on network of relationship, kin, social structure. Today we're going to see how kinship is also affected by physiological process of change in human beings. And two, it is the process of aging, that is growing old, which has become a kind of important issue for discussion, because we see a lot of elderly population who are now beyond the care. They are kind of living in a careless society. So it is important to understand that life is kind of a physiological process of growing, becoming adult and then old age. Our relationships are also affected by the way we grow and become young or old. So today's lecture is specifically to understand the process of aging, becoming old, and how it affects our relationship, especially when we look into the context of gender. So it is important to understand that these are all connected to each other. To begin, let us understand the anthropology of aging. So, aging is a universal process defined as the uninterrupted process of normal development over time that leads to a progressive decline in physiological function and ultimately to death. Now, when we look into the old age, a lot of philosophical ideas emerge. That is kind of those who have grown old, have lived their life, they've seen the entire world, and it is time for them to retract, take rest, and ultimately kind of die. So this they have completed the long process from the birth till the death. Aging and gender is important because these are different ways in which men and women kind of are changing their relations or transforming themselves. It's also the physiological changes happens in men and women differently. So aging and gender can be seen as ways by which persons strive to maintain family relation in the face of such menaces as intergenerational conflict and the changes brought by modernity. A central problem of aging is not how to maintain family ties that threaten to be too loose, but how to loosen bonds to kin, places, things, one's own body that had become very tight. So in this lecture, the focus is more in terms of abstract idea of kind of not only looking at the functional aspect of kinship in terms of how it binds people, but also on the opposite, where how once you've kind of become old, you want to retract and become kind of loosen your ties and kind of be left to yourself to kind of be ready to face death. So this lecture is totally based on the ethnographic study. The title of the ethnography is White Saris and Sweet Mangoes, Aging, Gender and Body in North India. This ethnographic study was carried out by Sarah Lamb. And this study, Lamb tries to understand the link between aging, gender and the body. So this ethnographic fieldwork was done in a Bengali village in Maghaldi, which is in West Bengal, and the author examines the treatment of older women. There are a lot of rules, norms associated with older women, also older women who have become widow. The entire relationship with the other members of the society transforms once she has become an old, and there are certain cultural norms prescribed. So how these old women are coping with these cultural norms is the central understanding of the ethnography. It is a detailed ethnographic research providing an extensive and prescribed description of the everyday life. It's an ethnographic study where Sarah Lamb's considerable amount of time trying to understand how aging is not only a physiological change, it not only brings about change in the body, but it is also culturally constructed. It is your relationship with other members in the society is formed and reformed during old age. This ethnography, that is white saris and sweet mangoes, explores a number of kin relationship, father-son relationship, along with those of mother's, daughter, and also the marital relationship, that is the relationship with son-in-law, daughter-in-law, and others. This ethnography includes several rich accounts of the life experiences, words, and views of older men as well. Their perspective on begging, pilgrimage, and ties to the world. So philosophically, the text is trying to help us connect with the otherworldly relationship. And there are terms like Maya or the attachment to other members, which Sarah Lamb explores, and she recreates the counters of aging in the particular village in West Bengal. Here, Sarah Lamb is kind of moving a step forward in the sense that most of the ethnography, they talk about women's life when we refer to gender. Here, both gender are kind of considered equally when we try to understand the process of aging. And aging is considered as paradoxical time of life. So it's a paradoxical point of life according to author, because it's a time when one has achieved, has kind of done all the roles and responsibilities, and it should be a time when one can get involved in livelihood or with their family and household, but it is also a time when one has to withdraw, has to kind of get separated from it, and the author considered this as a preparation towards the ultimate, which is the idea of moksha or renunciation. So gendered identities, people and personhood, these are some of the concepts which has been explored by the author. And age, which is a physiological process, has been considered as a variable often rendered invisible or benign in anthropology and gender study. As a result, apparently freezing the life of those studied in conditions of perpetual youth. So the author tries to argue that much of the anthropological literature, when we talk about gender or we talk about understanding a community or a culture, has been on the youth. As a result, those who kind of grow old has been left out from anthropological literature, assuming that if the youth has been studied, it will not be any different to study the old people. Through the ethnography, Sarah Lamb examines how social relations are formed, taken apart and reformed by the process of aging. How gender and bodies and persons are made and remade over life courses. The approach here shows that gendered identity of being a man and a woman, and the concept of personhood are all in constant flux, impossible to fix in essentialized forms of knowledge about what it is or is not to be a man or woman in rural Bengal. So the idea is of the cultural specificity, that there is no universal, uniform way in which we can look at the process of age or how we try to define certain behavior which are regarded as stereotypically or women behavior or men. There are a lot of constant change, and at the empirical level, we see that it would be very difficult to identify what these categories actually mean. So, there are a lot of chapters devoted in the book to the formation of personhood and to family moral system, to the system of unreciprocated exchange involving women, to the social status of widowhood and sexuality, and to the what the author terms the transformation of gender in old age. So the argument is that your entirely understanding of what would be a woman or a man kind of undergoes a transformation with this physiological process of aging. According to Sarah Lamb, a central concern of older women in the village was of overcoming the ties of Maya. Now, this concept of Maya has been used as a central term to understand how the transformation takes place among the older generation. So, the term Maya is translated to mean illusion, but which Lamb defines additionally as a web of attachment, affections, jealousies and love that kind of makes up the Bengali society in terms of the social relationship. Basically, is using this concept to understand kin relationship, the attachment that individual develop in a family relationship, how intimate we kind of get to people who are close to each other. We are concerned about their success, about their failures, about the everyday routine. So that is what is been clubbed together by the term Maya. Images of old women, especially in the rural village, is that of a powerful matriarch who have finally come into their own as elderly mothers, mother-in-laws, grandmother, revered in some ways as deity. So, a lot of gender studies have made reference to the idea that the inferiority or the subordinate status of women is more in when she is young. As women grow old, they kind of take on the position of power and authority, and they kind of become very divine or very ritually ordained. But when older women describe their own life, that is the author talking to the old women in Bengal, it was evident that most of the old women often speak not of power and reference, but of losses, of waning powers, or becoming forgotten by son and their wife. So the literature suggests that older women are very strong, powerful, are like matriarch, but in reality, much of the data suggests that they kind of feel left out, they feel neglected, they don't have any kind of authority, and they are also kind of left alone by their children. Another common image of old women is to highlight the possibility of the body and all the earthly matters, signaling a time to focus on God. So, in a common language, a layman's language, old age is often associated with rituality. The old people are considered to be more religious. Religiosity becomes a part of the way of their life. So it is assumed that as men and women become older, they kind of become more desirable of being associated with ritual activity. But in reality, old age is a time when women are forced to break family ties and seek an institutional refuge in a modern secular city. So the idea is of aging to understand how there's also change at the social economic level, that is modernity is emerging, there's a shift towards secular ideas. So how do the aging kind of adjust itself with modernity and secularization? Aging as a process is seen as multifaceted lens for viewing the varied ways social ties may be formed and taken apart and bodies and genders transformed. Aging is culturally specific. So Western culture, it is that time of life when one has achieved success and seen as an end, so you have ultimately done all your work, your responsibility, and it's a time where you can indulge in lot of enjoyment and leisure activity. However, in Indian culture, old age is considered to start off a new path, a new beginning, and this new beginning is in terms of becoming more close to the God. And the objective of this is because of the idea of Hindu ideas of getting a kind of a better next life, or kind of being able to achieve moksha or ultimate salvation from the process of life and death. The problem of Maya. So now we're going to understand how Sarah Lamb uses this concept of Maya to understand gender, aging and kinship. Sarah Lamb focuses on Maya as a concept crucial to the Bengali community, viewed as a tragedy that grows with age and must be overcome in old age as a preparation for death. Maya commonly refers to illusion. It refers to the nature of everyday lived world of experience known as samsara in Sanskrit and in Bengali as samsar. It is more commonly equated with effects like attachment, and this is using a lot of regional language to get this essence of the entire society and the way cultural constructs are done. So attachment means sakti, affection means sneh, mamta, compassion means daya, or love, which is in Bengali it means bhalobasha. Apart from the emotional ties, that is affection and attachment, Maya also involves substantial or bodily connections as well. And that is where she brings in the concept of personhood. Persons see themselves as substantially part of and tied to the people, belonging, land, houses, which are all associated with the concept of Maya. So the idea that who a person is not only in terms of the physiological body, but also the social ties that he or she develops with other members of the society, and also the economic aspect, which is the possession. You know, we have too much of attachment to the place we are born, to the land and other material possessions in life. So Bengali also refer to Maya as taking the form of binding. That is Maya Bandhan. You have kind of achieved a bonding with the other members and your economic sense, or a net, which is Maya Jal, in which people and all living people are enmeshed. Strands of this net can be experienced as pull. That is, you are kind of being pulled to one side because of a stronger connection, strong attachment. The binding of Maya can also be loosened or cut by acts such as moving away from a home or village. So many a time this concept of cutting means that you loosen your ties from the place that you belong to the family with your relations. And in a lot of common sense language, we see that when people migrate to other countries, to Western countries, they are kind of considered as having a low level of connection. So they are kind of cut away from their roots or from their original family and cultural background. So cutting Maya is something that most Bengali believe to be extremely difficult to do, and it is also kind of associated with a lot of negativity. So if you are able to cut your ties, or you are not attached to your family and to your kin relation, then you are kind of considered as not a person of good virtue. So the phenomena of cutting causes immense pain and suffering to human whenever there are separation or conflicting attachment. In simple terms, Maya means affection or attachment for other, desirable, and also to be learnt by the Westerners. So when there is a kind of the comparison of culture between the West and the East, this is this attachment, emotional attachment, your too much of connection with family and tie is seen in the Western literature as something which is kind of from an Orientalist perspective, as something which is kind of responsible for the underdevelopment of the country. But then if it is seen from the Indians themselves, it is a good quality that should be learned by the outsiders or the foreigners. People in Mangaldi, that is the place where the research was done, thought of Maya as both attachment and illusion, and this is kind of problematic. Maya is classified by Bengali as one of the six chief evils or vices, and she's again kind of using the regional term. Vices means ripers that plague human society. That is, it is kind of considered problematic for the society. And the other evils are anger, which is krodh, passion, greed, pride, and jealousy. So these are all kind of vices which are associated with human lives. So Maya is kind of considered as bad because it causes immense pain and suffering, but it is also some of celebration, or it has been romanticized because it also talks about the bondedness of family and kinship. So life is full of separation and losses as sisters and daughters leave for their husband, homes, grandparents, parents, and the process of birth and death. Now, the focus of Sarah Lamb's ethnography was to understand the connection between the Maya in the old age, how the focus is not to increase or strengthen the kinship tie and family ties in old state, but how to loosen them or how to cut across these relationships which one has built throughout the life. And why is it needed to do? It is so that it kind of makes it easier for, or it is a preparation towards the death. The more the Maya the people have in the old age, the more they suffer the pain of separation. The ties making up person, the binding of Maya, are in general likely to increase in number and intensity with the length of life, and yet it is also in later life when these ties must be loosened as a part of preparing for the myriad leaving taking of death. So there is a kind of a divided life, one life which you have lived and then the other where there is a lot of preparation to ultimately meet the death. Old age becomes paradoxical time of life when relations are the most fragile but the pulse of Maya the strongest. Maya is itself the result of what Lamb calls mixing of food and fluids, people and places, objects and emotion, a process that needs constantly to be renewed, celebrated and remade. This constructed becomes then a central ethnography for tracing the transformation of the web of Maya through the life courses allows transformation of social relation and specifically gender to emerge in relief. Aging is seen as a means of gaining perspective on notion of gender, the body, kinship and forces of culture. So the possession of Maya is dependent on people's personality, family living, material, wealth, physical health. So those who are from the richer class or those who have plenty of material things, they will also have lot of network, they will also have lot of possession, and therefore the Maya will be comparatively higher. Those who have less, like the beggars or the dwellers in old age homes, the Maya will decline. In Mangalidhi, the majority of the people believe that Maya for most people increases with the length of old age. So one of the reason why it increases with the old age is the increase in the number of kins and spouses. However, it is kind of something that has to be given away. So the idea is that it is something which is of both attachment, pleasure, yet it is something that has to be given off. The easier that it is given off, the aging as a process becomes easier for the people. So Maya for the things and pleasure of the world increases, yet it is desirable to kind of cut off from it. So in this way, Sarah Lamb talks about the process of aging, personhood and gender identity with her specific ethnographic study of the village in West Bengal. With this, I come to an end of this lecture. Thank you.